Okay, set yourself up for your practice. So just sit yourself on a lift and come into a comfortable cross-leg position. Just sit yourself in comfortable position. Make sure cross legs. Make sure that you're sitting evenly at the seat bones, and then lift the chest. Draw your shoulders down away from your ears. Look down at the floor. Just listen to the sound of the breath, and just look at the floor. Just ensure that the eyes stay still, just looking directly at the floor. Just stilling the eyes, stilling the breath. And then bring your hands into Namaste. Press your palms together, lengthen from the armpits into the elbows. And then allow your eyes to gently close, but keep your eyes still in the sockets. Look down into the chest cavity, but keep the head lifted. Just listen to the breath. Listen to the sound of the breath. Feel how the chest rises upwards and outwards with the inhalation. Try to make the in-breath as non-resistant as you can. Breathing into the back chest as well as the front chest. With an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in the area, and then release your hands down to the floor, down to your knees, palms facing upwards. And then raise your head and open your eyes. Just hold on to your knees, lift up into the chest, driving your chest upwards, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left side, sorry, to the right side, drawing your abdomen from the left to the right, digging the back hand into the floor, lifting the chest, turning the shoulders and the ribs and the abdomen. And then come back to the center, hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, drive the spine upwards, take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left, drawing the abdomen across. Using the out breath to turn a little more deeply. And then come back to the center. Just come down off the, or sit, come off the lift, and then sit back on your heels for a moment. Just sit on your heels and let your legs just adjust to this position. Just wriggle into your heels so that the outer buttock is kind of sitting inside the inner heel. Lift up into the chest. Feel that the chest wants to leave the hips behind, lifting upwards. And then hinge at the hips and then stretch forwards. Come forwards, press your hands into the floor. Spread your fingers, spread your palms. And then lengthen the arms away. Bring your head down onto the floor. If your head doesn't reach the floor, then use a block underneath your head. Try to sit, but keep the seat bones down on the heels, really determinedly. Listen to the breath. Lengthen into the arms. Breathe evenly and deeply, lengthening the arms, stretching from the hips into the hands. So working your arms deeply so that the arms become really straight, locking the outer elbows inwards, listening to the breath. And then come up with straight arms, keeping your arms straight. Have the little fingers on the edge of the mat. Have the feet as wide apart as the mat. And then with bent knees to start off with, come up into dog down. So bending your knees, push the heels of your hands deeply into the floor. Push the heels of the hands and then the palms of the hands, stretching the palms from the heels of the hands and then lengthening into the fingertips. So keeping the hands really firmly even on the floor rather than all of the weight on the heel of the hand. And then that, if you put all of the weight on the heel of the hand, just allow that to happen. You suddenly get this really intense kind of resistance in the shoulders. So push the heels of the hands into the floor, spread into the palms, into the fingers, and then straighten your legs if you haven't done already. Tighten the kneecaps. Tighten the kneecaps, turn the fronts of the thighs in, and breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Keeping the jaw soft and the tongue soft. And then step the feet forwards, come up into a standing position, and then have your feet as wide apart as your mat. Have blocks for your hands for parsvottanasana. So the feet as wide apart as the mat, and then straighten the legs, really tighten the kneecaps, lift up into the chest. Raise your arms up to the ceiling, and then hinge at the hips. Feel how the hips create the movement, keeping the back really straight. And then underneath the shoulders, have your hands on the blocks and the fingertips, really activating the kneecaps, pressing the kneecap up towards the back of the knee, but lifting the kneecap up towards the thigh muscle. Again, turning the fronts of the thighs in, so that the backs of the thighs can broaden outwards, and then lift the seat bones away from the backs of the legs. Extend into the chin and the chest. Breathe in evenly and deeply. If you can go down a little lower, then do. Just observing your own resistance, acknowledging it and respecting it. Come down to the floor if you can, but stay with the lift underneath your hands if you're protecting your back, or if you need to keep the support underneath your hands. Lift into the chest. If you can go down further, then keep the front chest long and then reach around the backs of the heels. Lift from the heels up into the hips. Stamp the heels down. Lift the hips upwards, lift the seat bones upwards. Drawing the body in to the space between the two legs. Just listening to the breath. Just working with whatever resistance you have this morning. And then release into parsvottanasana again. And then bring your hands into your hips and then bend your knees on the way up if you need to, and then come into tadasana. So just stand in the center of your mat with the inner edge of the feet touching. Just lift up into the chest. Let the chest rise upwards. Extending the chest upwards, the inner edge of the feet together, spreading the toes, tightening the kneecaps, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards so that the tailbone can move inwards without disturbing the legs. Lift the front chest up towards the ceiling, draw the back chest down towards the floor. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump your feet apart nice and wide with your legs. Turn your left toes in, and then your right leg and foot all the way out, and then come back to face the front. Keep your left hand on your hip and then reach up with the right hand. I'll run out of ceiling height a little here, but then come over. Keep reaching out into the right arm, keeping the left hand on the hip, and then finding the shin, and then working to really rotate that top shoulder towards the back of the room, and then reach up. Just listen to the breath. So just look down as you head over your foot. If it's not, then lift the chest a little more. Move the front leg, buttock bone, that right buttock bone forwards. Really resist that forward action, however, with the back leg. Push the left leg towards the back of the room. Turning the chest up to face the ceiling. And then reaching up if you can. So you can always use a chair for support or use a wall. Breathe evenly and deeply listen to the sound of the breath. And then reach up with the top hand, come back to the center, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in and the left leg and foot all the way out. And then just release the hands for a second. Just make sure that this heel is lined up with the instep or the toes of the back foot. Adjust it if it's not. Activate those legs, tighten the kneecaps, lift up into the chest, reach up into the left hand, keep your right hand on your hip, and then reach over, keeping this side of the torso long, and then rotate the top shoulder towards the back of the room, lifting the chest up to the ceiling, and then reaching up. So just be in the pose and just observe your list of instructions like bullet points. Just go through one at a time of the elements of the pose that we have focused on in the past, and then activate them, but don't forget about the breath. And then reach up with the top hand, come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step your feet back together, come back into Tadasana. So by saying, just activate that bullet point of learning points that you've brought from previous sessions. I'm not being lazy by saying that. Obviously I could list through a load of things that we could focus on, but it's really so that we start to rely on the intellectual body, on the back of the brain, that kind of gives us our instructions, because we've all been doing yoga for a long time in this group. And so sometimes, rather than just being given a list of things to focus on, we go into the pose and we feel what we need to do. So I'm going to speak a little less for the rest of the session. Again, not because I'm being lazy, but because I want you to really engage with the physical pose. Do it for yourself. So just breathe evenly and deeply. Activate your Tadasana. Make this an active part of your practice. Observe your balance. Observe the breath. Bring your arms out nice and wide, in towards the chest, and then step the feet wide apart, and then turn your left toes in steeply, the right leg and foot all the way out. So we're going to go into parsvottanasana. Turn that back heel out. Bring the hips level. Activate the legs. Lift up into the chest. Ooh, lost my balance there. Lift up into the chest and then hinge at the hips. And then reach the floor, or if you can't reach the floor, if it makes you do this, then put some blocks underneath your hands and come up onto the fingertips. Focus on the levelness of the hips. Focus on the extension of the spine and the straight back. If you can, walk your hands towards the back leg, keeping the chest lifted. Drive in the front chest down along the leg. Don't drop your head too soon. Keep the head lifted. Breathe evenly and deeply. Observe the way that the legs are working. Are they working evenly? Just come back to the first stage. Just go back to the hips, back to the spine. And then bend the front leg, step forwards, come up into a standing position. And then come back into Tadasana. Take your blocks with you if you need them. Just come back into Tadasana, observe your pose. Observe the energy around the solar plexus, around the diaphragm region, around the abdomen. Bring arms out nice and wide in towards the chest, and then step or jump the feet apart. Turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. Just turning that back leg as much as you can. Lift up into the chest. Hinge at the hips. You can literally feel the pelvic girdle kind of sliding in the socket. And then reach down, find the blocks, or just use the floor and lengthen the spine. Feel that the hips can be level. Activate the legs so that the hips are level. Lengthen from the hips into the chest. And then walk the hands towards the back leg if you can. But it's fine to just stay at the first stage. Just focus on the activation of the legs. Breathe evenly in through the nose and out through the nose. Okay, come back to the first stage, lengthening, leveling the hips. And then bend that front leg, step forwards with the back leg, and then come back up into Tadasana. Just feel the energy in the chest. Just listen to the breath in through the nose and out through the nose. And then release. And then just come down onto your knees, have your hands shoulder width apart, step back, turn the toes under, and then with straight arms, if you can, come up into dog down. Just let your head hang down, breathe evenly. So from here, we're going to go into the pigeon pose, into rajakopotasana. If coming into rajakopotasana from dog down is too much for you, then come down onto your knees and then follow the rest of the instructions as we go. So come down onto your knees first. If coming into it from dog down is not right for you, otherwise keep the feet where they are, lift up into the legs, up into the hips, and then bend the right leg and then bring the right knee to make contact with the right wrist. Let the right foot sits underneath the thigh. Bring the left leg down onto the floor, lengthen that left leg away, and then lift up into the chest. Take deep inhalations, deep exhalations. So walking that left leg away, lifting the front chest, trying to find that stretch in the abdomen. And then bring the palms flat down onto the floor. Again, If coming back into dog down is too much for you, then just walk the back leg in and go back onto the two knees from rajakopotasana. Otherwise, turn those left toes under and then step yourself back up into dog down. So just adapt the pose for yourself. So you come down onto your knees and then you can go back up into dog down. Or you can stay on your knees, whichever feels most comfortable for you. And then bend the left leg, bring the left knee to make contact with the left wrist, with the left foot underneath the right hip, and then lengthen that right leg away. Lengthening into the right leg and then lift up into the chest. Feel that you can bring the hips level. So Tadasana, that back leg, lift up into the chest. Take deep, non-resistant inhalations. And then bring the palms down, turn the toes under that right foot, and then either just go back and bring that left knee back so you're on your knees, or if you can, just come back up into dog down. So if you come out of the pose, going back onto your knees, then if you can, once you've recovered from the previous pose, come up into dog down. So rajakopotasana is a lovely stretch for the hips. Okay, and then come down and then just sit back on your heels, just lift up into the chest, just observe your energy. Observe the energy that you have released through your practice so far. Just breathe evenly, breathe deeply. Just letting the energy level out. Okay, and then just sit yourself directly on the floor for a moment. Just come into cross legs and just roll over, move the buttock flesh out to the side, lift up into the chest and drive the spine upwards. Just take some deep inhalations, some deep exhalations, listening to the breath. Draw your chin down to meet your chest. Jalandhara bandha, raise the anal sphincter up towards the diaphragm. For Mula bandha. And then just spend a little time with the breath, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top, allowing the out breath to overflow into the arms and into the chest and into the legs. And then release Mula Bandha, release Jalandhara Bandha, and then raise your head. So get yourself a couple of blocks to sit on. So a couple of blocks, just sit on a little lift. So just sit on a couple of blocks and then stretch your legs out. You might need a belt handy. You might need a blanket handy as well. So just have those things there. So bharadvajasana, it's a nice seated spinal twist. So just lengthen the legs away, move the buttock flesh out to the side. Like I say, you might want a belt, so have that nearby, and then lift up into the chest. Just come into dandasana. Just breathing evenly, extending into the legs really forcefully, lifting up into the chest. Actually, forcefully isn't really the word that we want. It's more like extend the legs with focus rather than with forcefulness. Forcefulness isn't really the word we want in yoga. Just lift up into the chest. And then bring the feet, just bring the feet slightly apart. And then you're going to bend the right knee and then bring the top of the right foot underneath the left thigh and bring this right knee down onto the floor. So you should be able to see at least the toes and the instep of the right foot on the outside of the left thigh. So this knee needs to be kind of down on the floor and the toes are pointing out to the right side of that, to the left side of that right foot. And then bring the other leg into virasana. So bring the shin into the instep of that right foot and then see if you can line your knees up in front of you here. Now at this stage, this is where we work out what we need to add to the pose. So you might need to just draw the buttock flesh out to the side so that we can feel that the seat bones feel level. Now at this stage, we can really determine, do we need something else to kind of make those seat bones level? So for me today, I kind of feel like this hip isn't really level with this one. So I'm gonna get a blanket, a folded blanket, and then I'm gonna sit the right buttock bone on that blanket and then just have the left buttock bone kind of just floating and drawing down towards the blocks that I'm sitting on. So now it feels a little more even. So be honest with yourself and just feel what you need to make the pelvis level. Lift up into the chest and then raise your left arm up to the ceiling. Stretch up like you're doing advisable. And then reach all the way behind you. Bring that right hand down to the floor behind you and then turn to the right side without disturbing the seat bones. And then bring that left hand down onto the outside of the right knee and then lift up into the chest and turn. So try not to lean towards that right buttock bone too much. Move away from the feet. Turn in the abdomen. Just listening to the sound of the breath. This creates a little bit of internal fire. So maybe you start to feel yourself warming up. And then gently come back to the center. Just breathe in evenly and deeply. So the next stage, and this is where your belt might come into it. Second stage is where you reach around with your right arm, and then you see if you can get hold of the inner elbow on that left side. So you get hold of the inner elbow, and then you lift, and then you turn. So my shoulders are feeling a little stiff as usual today, so I'm going to put a belt around the inner elbow and then just reach towards that belt as much as I can, and then turn to the right side. So you, again, it's the same side, but this time the back of your hand is pushing into the kidney region, giving the kidneys a massage. But just again, just feel that your seat bones still feel level. You lift out of the hips up into the abdomen. And then gently come back to the center, and then just release the seat bones, and then stretch the legs out in front. So maybe you can feel some inner heat. So lift up into the chest, just stretching into dandasana. Have the inner edge of the feet together if you can, or you can have your feet slightly apart. Just lifting up into the chest. And then bring the feet apart slightly, and then get hold of the back of the left knee, and then bring the top of the foot onto the floor. And then these knees are still level, even though this right leg is out in front. So the toes of that and the instep of the right foot should be visible on the outside of the right thigh. And then bring the right leg into virasana, sit in the shin in the instep, and then just use whatever supports you need to make the hips feel level. So lift up into the chest, reach up into the right arm, really rotating the arm in the socket. Turn to the left, dig the left hand into the floor or into the blocks behind you, and then bring that right hand down and turn, drawing the abdomen across, the ribs across, the shoulders across. And then gently come back to the center. And then again, just reach the left arm behind you, get hold of the inner elbow, and then turn, or again, get hold of that, put the belt around the elbow, and then reach behind you, and then turn from there with the belt in the elbow. Lift up into the chest. Try and keep the seat bones level as you turn. Lifting the hips, lifting the chest up out of the hips. And then very gently come back to the center, and then just move the blanket out of the way if you're sitting on it, and then stretch your legs out in front. Again, just lift up out of the legs, extending the legs consciously, and then lifting the chest upwards. Breathing evenly and softly but deeply. Okay, and then just gently release and come off the blocks. Keep the blocks handy. So we're going to go into chatushpadasana. So you might need your belt handy for this. So I'll show you. So you're going to come down onto your back. You pull the feet right in to as close to the seat bones as you can, but have the feet in line with the seat bones, so they're not too wide apart. So you have your feet hip width apart, and then you come down, keep hold of the shins, and then bring your head down. Then you can lift the seat bones, and then gather the shoulder blades together, and then you can come up. So if you can't do that, if you can't hold on to your legs, then you can just use the belt around the bottom of the shins, again keeping the feet hip width apart, and then again you lift the chest up, but then you get stuck at that stage, so then you've got to gather the shoulder blades together, draw the crease of the elbows up to face the ceiling, and then come up onto the tops of the shoulders. So chatushpadasana. So let's go down into there. So grip around the fronts of the shins or using the belt, bring the head down, and then turn the tailbone in, and then come right up onto the tops of the shoulders. From there, you can bring your hands into the lower back setubandha. So just come in and out of chatushpadasana, or bring the hands into the lower ribcage region, and then just come into setubandha and stay. Try not to let the knees fall apart. Keep the knees directly over the feet. So coming in and out of chatushpadasana, do it 3 times, or if you're in setubandha, then just stay in setubandha, holding onto your back with your hands. And then just gently, if you're in setubandha, just come up onto the tiptoes, just release the hands from underneath the hips, and then guide yourself back down onto the floor, and then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a little gentle massage, just in and out the kinks of the spine. And then reach down, get hold of the shins, and then bring the feet together as close to the seat bones as you can, and then come into supta, baddha konasana. So the feet are close to the seat bones, the outer edge of the feet are together, the big toe side of the foot is pressing together, but let the knees fall apart. If there's stiffness in your hips, put some blocks underneath your thighs. And just feel the energy around the liver region, around the abdomen. Let the body release into the floor for a moment. Just reach your arms up to the ceiling. Try and keep the outer shoulder blade down on the floor as you reach up. And then interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the hand, and then turn the palms all the way out, facing the ceiling, and then lengthen your arms along the floor. Lengthen the arms away from the head, squeezing the outer elbows inwards. Bring your arms back to the ceiling and then just swap the interlock of the fingers so that the other index finger is on the top of the stack, and then again turn the palms all the way up, squeeze the outer elbows in, and then lengthen your arms along the floor. And then release your arms, just reach the arms to the ceiling, and then just rest down into the floor. Rest your hands on your lower ribs. Just observe the breath. Just observe the rise and the fall of the abdomen and the expansion and relaxation of the rib cage with the breath. And then bring your knees together, pull your knees in toward your chest, just a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. And then just rock yourself up into a seated position. So get your bolster, if you've got one. If you haven't, then just use some cushions. And then we're just going to go back into konasana, supta for a moment or two, just to feel how the chest gets opened up with the support of the bolster. Again, putting blocks underneath your thighs if you need to. If your head rolls back, then put a blanket underneath your head, underneath the head and the neck, just to ensure that the brain stays quiet. Just take deep inhalations, deep exhalations, breathing into the front chest. Breathing into the front chest and breathing into the back chest. And then just stay on the bolster, bring your knees together, and then just let your legs lengthen out along the floor so that the spine feels as though it gets a lengthening action. There's this release in the hips. Just releasing into the floor, letting go of the muscles of the arms and the legs. And then just bring your elbows into the floor, lift yourself up into a seated position, and then move the bolster so that it's underneath your knees. And the blanket stays underneath your head. And then just for the last minute or two, just lay yourself down with the bolster underneath your knees, just letting the back soften. Just listen to the breath. Let go of the muscle of the arms and the legs. Unhooking the muscles. So allowing the physical body to become heavy, so that our energetic lightness rises to the top of the skin. Breathing evenly, just basking in that feeling of lightness. It rises up out of the physical body into the skin. Okay, when you're ready to disturb yourself, just gently wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and then bend your knees, bring your feet onto the bolster, have the knees together, the feet apart. And then just draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little grounding massage on the floor, rocking from side to side, just working your back into the floor. And then when you're ready, just gently roll over onto the right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into a seated position, just cross legs with your hands in Namaste, just a final spinal lift. Drawing your breath in through the nose and down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and twists bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside and then radiate some of that positive energy out into the world. And release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. So hopefully you feel as though you have created some inner warmth and you've created some good energy to put into the rest of your day. So thank you very much for joining.